Welcome back to the Rialto. When this building was only 8 years old, back in 1930, two of America's greatest writers moved about a mile from here. You just go down East Broad that way, under the bridge, bear right at the circle, turn left, and you're there. They had left a cultural explosion known as the Harlem Renaissance. Music, dance, theater, fashion, literature, and they came here because they wanted to focus on their writing. When they got here, they started collaborating on a play, and unfortunately that would just be the beginning of their drama, but we're gonna let our esteemed experts tell you all about that story. My name is Bill Crandall, and I was actually born 4 blocks from where Langston Hughes had lived and 5 blocks from where Zora Neale Hurston had lived. And their work inspired me later as a frustrated chemistry student to switch to an English major and become a writer. And my parents were thrilled. I am just one of the volunteers who has come together to transform this iconic building into a multifunctional home for the arts. And while we're confident that we are going to receive most of our funding from the state, we're launching a $9 million campaign to finish construction and fund our operations, all geared at a grand reopening in 2028. How does that sound to you? Yeah. I said, how does that sound to you? Awesome. Please go to rialtowestfield.org and look there, as well as our social media accounts, to find out how you can help make this exciting plan a reality. So, speaking of this exciting plan, part of it is the Spotlight series. This is our second one of these, and it is about showcasing local talent, telling local stories, and spreading the word of the Rialto. And we're going to need all of your loud voices once you leave here, and if you're watching us on the phones, to share as well. Our guest tonight, Monica L. Miller, who is the chair of Africana Studies at Barnard College, Columbia University, and Tanya Birl-Torres, who is a director, choreographer, and artist in residence at The Shed. And she also makes a mean playlist. Our host is Garrett Vogel. He is living here, he lives here with his family in Westfield, and he is a member of the morning show with Elvis Duran on Z100. That was his lovely voice you heard in our Rialto video. And yeah, he's a Southsider. So please give a warm Rialto welcome to Garrett, Monica, and Tanya.
Ladies, thank you very much for coming today. Welcome to Westfield.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm sure you've read plenty about it. Now you got to experience it for the first time, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, tell us your background and how you know Zora and Langston so well.
All right.
Go
Am
ahead.
I starting?
You're starting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya. What I want to do actually first is what I do in a lot of my work, which is bring everybody into the room. A lot of the conversations that we're having are with local people who grew up here in Westfield or lived in Westfield, and we obviously, we did not. And we're here from New York City by way of other places, me from Toronto, Canada.
Me from southeastern Connecticut.
Exactly. And so I feel it's really important to call in the presence of Zora and Langston into the space and ask everyone to just take a moment to maybe call on an ancestor of your choice to be in the room with us. And they can be here and we can all be here together. So if you would indulge, just taking a moment, you can close your eyes if you want, or you can just lower your gaze and take a deep breath in and a breath out. Just take a moment to bring to mind someone that you love. This can be someone that's in your family. I'm calling in Zora, who is my ancestor of choice, and welcoming Langston as well, and all those other loved ones into the room for this conversation. Thank you all. Thank you. So my connection to Zora is, it actually is not that long ago. I would say I've known who Zora is and known who Langston Hughes was, but about 4 or 5 years ago, I had my agent in a kind of stale time in the theater say to me, instead of sitting around waiting for someone to call you, you think about something that you would want to bring to life, or someone's a work that already exists that you would want to develop. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. It's a cool invitation. And for some reason, I went and watched Their Eyes Were Watching God again, but watched the movie that Oprah had produced with Halle Berry.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just randomly.
Just randomly. Look, I guess I was like, And then I went right away and listened to the audiobook of Ruby Dee speaking the entire book of Their Eyes Were Watching God. Mm-hmm. And it read like a play, like a musical. Like it was almost like I was handed the work. And it felt like I got to dive into this. And I dove in hard, and I've been diving ever since.
No looking back.
No looking back. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I got there much more directly, I would say. I've been teaching at Barnard for 25 years, actually. And it's my first job. And one of the things that I didn't realize until I got there was that Hurston was Barnard College's first Black graduate. Mm-hmm. So when I stepped into that position, I was at that time the person who was responsible for African American literature, African and American literature at Barnard College, 20th, 21st century. 20th at the time, it became 21st century. Mm-hmm. I realized that when I walked into Barnard Hall that I was in her presence and felt an incredible responsibility to make sure that my students, other faculty, staff, that we all knew, right, about Zora Neale Hurston and her writing. So I'm the local Hurstonite, right, at Barnard College. And it is through that responsibility and privilege, actually, that I've come to know a lot more about Langston Hughes, mm-hmm. right? Because of the connection that they had together. I mean, everyone, I think if you grow up in America, you read a Hughes poem at some point, right? But I had never really thought about his early life. I think I had an image of Hughes towards the end of his life, mm-hmm. when he was kind of avuncular, right? America's poet, right? But to learn about him in the 1920s and to learn about them and their relationship was something that has been a really incredible experience, honestly. And then being so close to Harlem, right? I mean, I teach classes all of the time that are about Harlem and about the Harlem Renaissance. So, we've been to Hughes's other house, right, in Harlem many times. So just making sure that we're aware, I mean, like this event, making sure that my students, again, faculty, staff, anybody who wants to listen to me, right, knows where we are, right, when we are talking about, when we're talking about African American literature, when we're talking about the Harlem Renaissance, when we're talking about Black culture, that's really important to me.
Well, I mean, let's dive right into it. Mm-hmm. Who are Zora and Langston?
Go ahead, Zora.
Okay, all right. I know. I'm definitely Team Zora.
Yeah, okay.
But, I'm very Team Zora when we
If you don't know who...
We'll get to it.
When we get into it.
We'll get into it. Yeah.
But so I will just say Zora is a cultural anthropologist. She was really the woman of the Harlem Renaissance. She was born and raised in Eatonville, Florida. Well, she was born in Alabama, but raised in Eatonville, Florida, the first incorporated Black town in America. Her dad was a preacher, and she grew up seeing him preach, and she was very dramatic, and her mother would tell her to jump at the sun, which is just so beautiful. And whenever people were trying to get her to be quiet, she made it all the way to New York. And the things I love about Zora that aren't talked so much about, we know her as a cultural anthropologist, as writing novels like Their Eyes Are Watching God, of being a folklorist, her recently published book, Barracoon, that, spent how many decades before it came out. But she also was a playwright, and she was a choreographer, and she was a director, and she believed that Black dramas would cure racism in America. and she didn't get as much exposure and opportunities to present her plays in the dramatic style that she wanted to. And I think that's where my connection with her comes in, and my history and career on Broadway. And Zora just really wanted to be on Broadway.
That's so true.
And so, I think that's who Zora is to me. She also really loved her friendships, and she loved to travel. And she did a lot of work, not only in the South, and bringing the stories in their preserved states of the genius of these people. Not, she would always say, I would go down and speak my what did she say? Like
Barnardese.
Barnardese.
She said, I shouldn't be speaking Barnardese.
Yeah, exactly. And she would go to the South and
Yeah.
just sit on porches and collect folk tales and turn them into plays. And she just is, Alice Walker coined her, like the genius of the South. And that's what she is. And she just loved Black people, Black culture, and preserving who we are.
Like you were saying, how you took your future into your own hands. Seems like she did the same
Very
thing
much.
as well.
Oh, yeah.
Very much so. And she was a force. And anywhere that she was, she commanded the center stage. And to be a woman in that time, and she held her own amongst a sea of men. And she really also struggled with that. And she left so many Easter eggs. I mean, there's so many letters and, songs that we'll hear a little bit of, and her writings and her even film that she took. And I just think she was so generous. I just say she's really such a generous ancestor, because anyone who feels called, I feel called, I feel like she is called, and I know Monica speaks to that. We have so much to work with.
Yeah,
She doesn't leave a lot.
Do you feel like you're learning something new almost
All the time.
Yeah.
Well, even Westfield, like this was
right.
like we're here.
Yes.
But we were like, oh my
What?
God,
Yeah.
what?
Yes.
We've read about it so much.
Yes.
So yes, we're always on an adventure.
And you're so close too. I mean,
I know.
I know.
30 minutes on the train.
Yeah. So that's Zora. Langston, again, I know through Zora,
Right.
who also was amazing.
Yes.
And is amazing.
Yes. Hughes, they're really different people, right? Which is fascinating to me, right? Because they were so close and intimate. Hughes had this very, if Hurston had kind of loud ambition, which I think she did, Hughes had quiet ambition, but there was a real drive underneath his kind of calm. Everyone keeps talking about how, when I read things from the 20s, about how incredibly handsome and charming he was, right? There was a tremendous amount of ambition underneath that charm, and he was suave, right? So as a writer, where they come together is at the level of writing, right? So I feel like as a writer, he was very interested in some of the same things that Hurston was, right? In terms of thinking about, like, what is the kernel of Black culture, right? The Harlem Renaissance is a time in which people are trying to, in which Black people for the first time, right? Because of the Great Migration of people moving to urban centers, where there's enough Black people in an area that we can have a kind of complicated, nuanced conversation, all right, about sort of Black modernity, about modern Blackness, about Black people being, modern in the world, self-generating, self-fashioning, all of that stuff, right? So Hughes was very interested in thinking about that idea, right? And trying to figure out how to articulate that in writing. First, poetry, right? He thought if drama was Hurston's obsession, poetry was his obsession, and the first, medium that he reached for. Though he also wrote short stories, plays, novels, a number of autobiographies, a whole bunch of other things, right? So he was really trying to kind of in some ways be similar to Hurston in terms of have an anthropological, right, look at Black people and Black culture, and try to kind of get everything that he was seeing, which is an amazing amount of diversity, into his work, right? He was like, there are Black peoples, right? Blackness comes in these different ways, but he was also really focused, as Hurston was, right, but in a different way, on working class people in particular. Like for him, Black culture was the culture of ordinary people, right? He operated in the high culture realm, and that's where the suaveness comes in, right? But he was really interested in some ways of articulating the culture of the kind of people on the street. For him, that meant people in jazz clubs. It meant people. It meant hustlers. It meant people dancing in clubs. It meant orators on the street. It meant all those things. So Hughes starts off, kind of slowly as a writer. I think he becomes much more famous he becomes famous in some ways. He has some moments of fame in the Harlem Renaissance, but he gets much more famous, right, as America's poet in the 40s and 50s, right? But in this moment, he's a young gun.
Yeah.
They're young guns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, the reason why we're here and what brought both of them here, why Westfield?
You want to start?
Yes. Okay. Why Westfield? This was the question. We were like,
Yeah.
the two of us together were like, why Westfield?
Honestly.
Right? We were just like, what?
My wife asked me the same thing.
Okay. All right. We got a couple of theories, right? We can start with some of the facts, right? And then we'll get to the theories, right? So in the later part of the 1920s, Hurston and Hughes had both had a little bit of success. And part of their success was tied or was related in a very complicated way to a patron that they shared, a woman named Charlotte Osgood Mason, right? And she was a very, very wealthy white woman who lived on the Upper East Side, who herself was an anthropologist, right? And had first studied Native Americans and then had also turned her attention to African Americans at this time. She was a primitivist, right? Which meant that she was very interested in both Native American culture and African American culture because she thought that those cultures were still relatively untouched by modernity and had this kind of like vital energy inside of them that Americans could use at the time, right? So Charlotte Osgood Mason was the patron of a number of Harlem Renaissance artists. Her agent in all of this was a man named Alan Locke, who was a Howard University professor and one of the sort of originators of the Harlem Renaissance. He was the broker. So he brought artists to Charlotte Mason's attention, and he met Hughes very, very early on and tried to seduce him. It didn't work, but nevertheless, really
Because he was so suave.
Elusive, right? He was elusive. Right, so but really respected his work. So introduced Hughes to Charlotte Osgood Mason, and then eventually Hughes introduced, and you can say more about this. Yeah. Hughes introduced Mason and Zora. Charlotte Osgood Mason was the person that sent both of them here to Westfield.
Yeah.
Say more.
So what's so fascinating is Zora and Langston met on like a southern road trip. They met in the South. Zora was already down there collecting stories. She'd been there for a while. She had her car, which was called
Sassy
Susie. And she had a gun in her, like she was not letting anyone mess with her. And Langston, so Zora always, and this is for another time, but she basically was 10 years older than she always.
She lied about her age.
She lied about her age. So Langston was a good amount younger than her, even though they said they were about the same age.
They were like mid-20s.
Yeah, mid-20s, but Zora was in her
mid-30s.
But she looked like she was in her 20s.
Yes.
Always.
So when she was Barnard's first black student, she was a freshman, or she was a transfer student from Howard. She was 36 or 34.
Yeah.
So she could have been a professor.
Totally. Yeah. And so they met in the South, and Zora was like, I'm collecting stories. It was Langston's first time in the South, so he's just kind of like, can you show me the ropes? She's like, oh, I know these people. We'll go here. We'll eat here. We'll go here. They did this amazing trip, and then on the trip, they were like, let's do this thing. Let's create, Zora's like, I have this story. Let's make a Broadway play. They thought none of the shows on Broadway were representing Black culture the way that they believed that it should be represented. They're like, we're the ones to do it. We're going to do it. They get to New York. So again, it's like this beautiful reciprocity of friendship. Langston's like, well, I got this rich lady. You should come on too. And so he introduced her to Charlotte Osgood Mason, and now Zora comes on. So Langston at the time was getting $150 a month for him to do his work. Zora got $200 a month, which was more, but she had to document all of her money spent, and all of the rights and royalties of her work belonged to Mason. So there was a catch for those $50 a month extra.
Yes.
And so that's how Charlotte came into the mix. But I think what's really interesting about now this trio that we have of Zora and Langston and Charlotte is, and we were talking about this on the ride up here, is like there was a real like love and intimacy, like love affair, but in a way that it wasn't sexual. It was artists just like loving on each other and making this art, and they had this explosive kind of relationship, the three of them, until they didn't.
Yeah.
So
But can I say something else about Westfield? So the other thing, one of over the last couple of years, I got to know Carla Kaplan, who is who writes beautifully about Hurston and the Harlem Renaissance, and she has this amazing book called Hurston: A Life in Letters, right? And there that's where the scuttlebutt is, right? If you're looking for Harlem Renaissance gossip, that is your place. But so I called, when this Westfield question came, I called Carla. I'm like, Carla has got to know why Westfield. And another thing that she said two things, right? That one of the things that's happening, right, in Harlem at this time, in the late 1920s, around the Renaissance, right, is that some of the artistic energy that really manifested in 1925 and 1926, right, some of that was kind of falling apart a little bit, right? So there's a way in which some of the writers had become famous and well known, right, and were getting distracted, right, in various ways. And Charlotte Osgood Mason really thought that was the case with Hurston and Hughes. She was like, these people need to get out of the city, right, sit down in a house or two houses, right, in Westfield, and concentrate on their work.
Get to work.
Because I'm paying them, right? That was part of it. It's also, Westfield had then, right, and has now, right, Black community, right? So it's not it's not that hard to get here. We got here fine, right? I mean, it's not that hard to get here. And there was also an established community here that they could come to, right, and be a part of without going to another community, say where there were, I mean, there are not a lot of, it's not a big Black community, but another community where they would have been much more conspicuous, right, and in some ways that was not, right, what I think Mason wanted. She wanted a degree of comfort, right, and quiet.
And focus.
And focus, right? So I think that's also
very similar why a lot of people move to Westfield.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It's like, why Westfield? That's
close enough to the city,
Yes.
but
Yes.
just far enough away where you don't feel like you're in the city.
Yes, you can get there because they, at least Hurston in particular, went back and forth.
Yeah.
A fair amount.
She did. And I will just add very quickly that them writing this play, Mule Bone, was a secret from Mason, because Mason wanted to keep them doing more intellectual studies and creating, like, I don't know, anthologies or whatever she wanted them to be doing. It was not writing Broadway shows. It was not.
So it was a surprise.
Well, the thing is that she was like, you need to go there to focus on the work that I want you to do. And they really came out here to write this play.
Yeah.
Sure, that went over well. the
When
first
she
meeting.
when she found out.
So let's talk about why what happened here was so important, because like you're saying, Mule Bone didn't get released until the 90s.
Yeah, no, it was never produced.
Right? So
it has never been produced.
I don't think it's been, I think you can read it, like you
Right.
can,
Yeah, you can
read
read
it,
it.
but it's never been
It's
produced
never
on
been,
stage.
like, you can't see it.
yeah. But why what happened here is so important, do you think? In the
Okay,
overall story of them.
I'll start.
Yeah, go.
I think for a couple of reasons, right? They came here to write that play, or they came here to do their individual work, but they ended up working on this play as well, right? So, and so there's something there. I know that we were going to talk about. So there's two things. There's one about their collaboration, right? I was trying to think of another example, and this is going to date me and may date other people in the room, right? Another example of what this collaboration was like. Like I said, they're young guns at this time. They are, you called Hurston, on her gravesite, and she's called a genius of the South. They are geniuses of the time, right? They come out here and start working together, right? They had been friends for years, but this is one of the first times when they're really intensely working together on a piece. They have this incredible love for each other, right? They also have different talents, right? If you read the letters, like Hurston's like, I've got the story, right? Says to Hughes, you've got the structure. Like, you are a better person at plot, right? But I'm the person that has the drama.
That's right.
Right? They agreed that was the case, right? So they had different strengths. So it was about this like possibility of collaboration. Here's the bad reference. It's Jay-Z and Kanye in Watch the Throne.
Come on,
so that's what it is. It is like this insane, like, oh my God, like that's what it is, right? They are just feeding off of each other in this way, like to create this piece that is so beautiful, right? So that's part of it. That's one of the things that happens here.
Yeah.
Like that collaboration happens here. The other thing that happens, right, and the collaboration, but it's based on this love, and then I'm going to pass it to you, right? Yeah. This collaboration is based on this like deep, it's hard to describe how much they loved each other, right? Hurston said at one point to Hughes in a letter, like, you are my soul, right? And we don't have many of his letters back to her, but it's so clear from the way that she describes the way that they work together and the way that they understand each other intellectually. Like, they have similar goals emotionally. Like, they have the same, I think. Hurston was racy in terms of her sense of humor and the way that she would express things. Hughes appreciated that. He was kind of square, right? He was from Kansas. Right, I mean, he reminds me a lot of Barack, right? In terms of like they have the same accent, right? Little square, right? But he loved her southernness, right? Brassiness, her like earthiness, like he loved that, right? So they really worked together. They loved each other. So the thing is, what happens here is that love, right, is intersected, right, by two women. One of which is Charlotte Osgood Mason, and the other one is Louise Thompson, which you are now going to talk about.
All right. So Charlotte, what ended up happening is in the midst of all of this, Langston's here, and he is like, I can't work. Like, I can't get anything out. There's really, like Monica was saying, a lot of the work that he's known for comes after he makes the very hard choice to say no to the money. He's basically, I don't want the money. I can't tap into my creativity. I feel.
He was also on a deadline for a novel, and he was like, I don't work well on deadlines. I don't write to deadline or to task.
Yeah, to task. Like I can't tap into my creativity. So his breakup, which he wanted to do with respect. I mean, he went to Charlotte. I love you. Oh, they both had to call her godmother.
Oh, sorry, I forgot that.
We forgot that part.
There's much more to that.
Yes.
Much more.
But get the book.
Was that in the contract?
Yes, it was.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know exactly, but that was the
godmother
rule.
was the rule. So her name. So when he broke up with godmother, he was heartbroken when I love you so much, and this is really about me. It's me, not you. And she was like, I mean, she nasty. And she started throwing.
She went nuts because she thought he was ungrateful.
Ungrateful and did all, through all the things and all the names. And so he was heartbroken, and Zora stayed on with her. So that was another thing that was very tricky as they were still trying to figure things out. And then there was another woman named Louise Thompson who was hired by Charlotte to be like a stenographer, or typist to come out and help them record here in Westfield. And so she stayed in Harlem, lived and worked in Harlem, but she would come out to Westfield and help them out. But Langston was in a very vulnerable place. He would confide in Louise. He built now this friendship and this closeness with Louise. We don't know, but there's many speculations of, was Zora jealous? Was Zora like, who is this woman coming in here? But it really happened when Langston said, she's spending a lot of time with this. She's doing a lot more than just typing. With the play, we should give her some royalties. And Zora was like, over my dead body, you're going to give her royalties? No, like, she's not getting royalties for this. And so that already had a wedge. And then she's got Charlotte in her ear talking about Langston. So now the rifts have already kind of started and are moving apart. And the Louise part is is tricky to, like, it's hard to know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of speculations over, was Langston and Louise together? Don't know, but what happened was whatever that bond was starting to have cracks, and people were placing doubt in both of their ears. And from this point on, they start to make some just bad decisions. And lack of communication is not even the beginning of how bad what they were doing between each other. And I think it was coming from a place of insecurity, of hurt, but also just trying to survive in the time.
So would you say jealousy was the beginning of end for the Harlem Renaissance?
So we were just saying this. I actually asked Monica, do you think they were competitive with each other? And we both, I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think it was jealousy of like one person doing better or being better.
Well, not even that. Like you were just saying, though, about the relationships that they established with others. And
maybe I should say a little bit more about the play.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Not what it's about, because that actually doesn't matter. But about how they broke up around the play.
Yeah.
Right? So what happened is they're working on the play here. Louise is typing. Hurston starts to be concerned about this Louise relationship. She gets out of town. She leaves. Right? Hughes actually stays here in and out for at least another year. Right? But what happens during that year, Hurston goes and does some field work in the South. What happens during that year is that the manuscript, right? There are two versions of the manuscript of Mule Bone. One of the manuscripts, Hurston copyrights in her name only.
And changes the title.
And changes the title. The other manuscript, Hughes copyrights with his and her name.
Yes.
One of these manuscripts, I think it's the second one, ends up in Cleveland, in the hands of a kind of regional theater company that often puts on plays by Black playwrights, right? And nobody's exactly sure how it got there. I mean, I won't bore you with that. But anyway, then somebody from Cleveland calls New York, and it was like, oh, we've got this play. Hurston was like, what? Yeah. I mean, she goes nuts. And there's, again, this is where the letters come in that are so amazing, right? I mean, there's this tremendous back and forth, telegrams, letters, different people on different sides. I love you, I hate you, it's okay now, it's not okay. Like, this goes on for a long time. But, and both of them are behaving horribly, right? Hughes is incredibly dramatic. Right, he's having a number of medical episodes around this. Right, he keeps talking about his anxiety, medical episodes. Like, Hurston is just foaming at the mouth and writing things in all caps. Right, it's just really a lot. And in the end, they work it out, and then it's so. Here's the irony. Life is full of irony. Louise Thompson, they work it out. Right, Louise Thompson comes to Cleveland on a completely different errand. She has a new job.
It's like
also.
She was there for the interracial conference
on
America
something. I don't know. So she's there on something else and just knows that Hughes is there, stops by, right? It's one evening. Hurston is on her way to Cleveland that same day, gets there, realizes Louise had been there, didn't know why, nobody had a chance to explain, and then she just completely
loses it.
It's hard to even describe what that moment is like. So then it all falls apart, and there are lawyers involved. It just goes all crazy. Agents, lawyers, friends, family, his mother.
Drama,
She almost has a fight with Langston Hughes's aged mother, who was also there, right? So it's just a very big drama. So the thing is, at that point, people say that's the point when they no longer talk to each other. That's not true. They actually have a bunch of, at least initially chilly and then a little bit more warmer conversation later, but they never work together again. They don't even, it's not even
Well,
a
what's so
possibility.
interesting is Hughes dedicates a chapter, or at least a section of his autobiography, to the feud between him and Zora. And I feel like Zora does what, I don't know, I feel like my mother would do this, my grandmother would do this. She didn't even mention his name
No.
in her autobiography.
No.
She didn't even mention his name.
No.
She's like, I will not even talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, even
It's
unto
fascinating.
death, like how
Yeah.
they both held on to it, or chose not to speak about it at all.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. There's I know we've got places we want to go,
No,
but
please.
I'm kind of called to read The Cat and Dog.
Okay,
think
go
I
ahead.
should read
Go-
it?
Yeah.
Go for
Let's
it.
read The Cat and Dog.
Okay, so there's a folktale that Zora, heard and learned about in the South.
Collected, yeah.
And I love it because it kind of describes their dynamic. Let me get the page. Yes. So this is from Mules and Men.
Which is her autobiography.
Well, no, it's
No,
her
her
collection
folklore
of folk,
collection,
Yeah,
right.
her folklore collection.
1934.
Okay. But there's also a truly simple version of this terribly complex tale. It appears in Zora's folklore collection, Mules and Men, published 3 years later. Imagine Langston as a dog whose bark sounds like ours, and Zora as a cat whose meow sounds like my ham, and the mule bone as the leg of a pig. Just go with it.
Okay, whatever.
Go
Yeah.
with it. Just
Yeah.
go with it. You just
Yeah.
got to go with it.
Okay.
And I'm going to do my best here because this is not in
Or just
Barnardese.
translate it. I translate it when I read it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Go ahead.
The dog and the cat used to live next door to one another, and both of them loved ham. Every time they get a chance, they'd buy a slice of ham. One time, both of them got hold of a little extra change, so the dog said to the cat, "Sister Cat, we both got a little money, and it would be fine if both of us could buy a ham piece. But neither one of us ain't got enough money to buy a whole ham by ourselves. Why don't we put our money together and buy us a ham together?" "All right, Bear Dog. Tomorrow being Saturday, let's go to the town and get ourselves a ham." So the next day, they went to town and bought the ham. They didn't have no convenience, so they had to walk and tote it. The dog toted it first, and he said as he walked up the road with his ham over his shoulder, "Ours, ours, ours. This is our ham." After a while, it was the cat's time to tote the meat. She said, "My ham, my ham, my ham." Dog heard her, but he didn't say nothing. When the dog took it again, he said, "Ours, ours, our ham." Cat toted it and says, "My ham, my ham." Dog says, "Sister Cat, how come you keep saying my ham when you totes our meat? I always say our ham." The cat didn't turn him no answer, but every time she toted the ham, she'd say my ham, and every time the dog toted it, he'd say ours. When they was almost home, the cat was carrying the ham, and all of a sudden she sprung up a tree and sat up there eating up the ham. The dog did all he could to stop her, but he couldn't climb, and so he couldn't do nothing but bark. But he told the cat, you up there in that tree eating all that ham, and I can't get to you, but when you come down, I'm going to make you take this Indian River for a dusty road."
Ooh. That's all Hurston right there.
That's
Indian
Hurston.
River for a dusty road. Yeah. That's phenomenal. Yeah.
Let's move over to collaborations
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
because that's where we're basing this chat off of. You two have come together and collaborated. So, like, what does it mean to work in a creative partnership with someone?
Well, I mean, depends on if you're a cat or a dog.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll say one thing that's related to this. I mean, for me, I work really, really collaboratively. Like, I'm a collaborative person. And, you know, one of the things, and also my students work collaboratively, especially on collaborative projects in the class that I teach on Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, right? And so I'm trying to practice what I preach. And for me, it's really a process of knowing when to, which is what's happening here, knowing when to step up, right? And knowing when to fall back. And, you know, in order to do that properly, right, ethically, you have to, there's trust, right? And a certain level of intimacy, right? So I feel like that's how it works. One of the other complications about this particular collaboration is not only, say, for example, the way that Charlotte Osgood Mason's patronage structure, right, put them in an unequal place, right? But also, you know, Hurston is the first. I think I'm gonna say this. I don't know where this is gonna go if we're recording, but like the first Black woman writer to be self-sustaining, even if she was being sustained by a patron. Mm-hmm. She didn't have another job, right? She's the first one. Like, there are no Black artists really, who are able to be artists, self-sustaining artists until this moment in American history, really, right? So she was really worried about intellectual property.
Yeah.
Like that's part of what's happening here, right? So collaboration when it's not just for fun,
Yeah.
right? But when it's for livelihood, and when it's for this kind of creative, I don't know, the possibility of creative explosion, I think is really, that's like, you see the difficulty.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to me, collaboration is communication, number one. I think we can hear in the story where the lines of communication, and it's with he said, she said, and this and that. And so to me, it's a willingness to be truthful with love. I think it is a willingness to be vulnerable with another person. And I think for me as a theater maker, there is absolutely no product without collaboration.
Yeah.
No one person can do anything. And so to me also, great collaboration is knowing that everyone brings an expertise to the table, and that to allow that expertise to shine, but also knowing that there needs to be a leader. And I mean, I know I'm on Team Zora, but to me, Zora was the leader of this project. And I think if she either was able to stay in that role or to be respected in that role, I think being able to see who is the clear leader in the world of collaboration is really important.
Yeah.
How do you think both of them would define collaboration? If any,
I mean, I keep thinking about, there is a moment in the letters again where Hurston says, and she's recounting a conversation, she says something like, oh, you know, this is like a 60-40 project.
Yeah.
Like I'm 60, you're 40.
You're 40.
Right? and it was, I think they kind of agreed to that, right? So how they would think about collaboration, I think it was 60-40, and then it was like, you're the plot, I'm the drama, right? Louise is the typist, right? She is not a creator in this project, right? She's not getting royalties, right? So I mean, in terms of collaboration, I think they might think about it both materially, right? But then it's also, there's that spiritual connection that I really believe that they had, right? So for them, the collaboration was also that like flow that they got into, right? That the way that they describe that trip that they take to the South is like they were in a flow state. Like they were driving around in Hurston's Sassy Susie, right? Just talking all day, moving from place to place, interacting with people, just like living, right, living their creativity, right? So I feel like for them, if collaboration is both of those things, you can see how they're gonna bump up.
That's right. And I think for artists, livelihood is so much a part of this conversation, and I find collaboration can fall apart when you're struggling just to eat and live. And I always have said, like, you don't have to pay artists to make great work. Support the artist, and then step away. We're gonna create. Like, that's just why we're here. That's what we do. So I think when all those constraints started coming in, I say to Monica, like, I want to blame Charlotte Osgood Mason for everything. But it's not that easy. But just to say, like, when all of that started happening, that's where I think the collaboration fell apart.
Now, legacy, how does their work, continue today?
I think I'm supposed to say something about a cue on the screen. Am I? Maybe?
I know we missed all
Elliot?
of that.
But that's okay. We're going to show, this quote from Alice Walker. So I'm just going to read it. Each was to the other. You can't hear me. Each was to the other an affirming example of what Black people could be like: wild, crazy, creative, spontaneous, at ease with who they are, and funny. A lot of attention has been given to their breakup, but very little to the pleasure Zora and Langston must have felt in each other's company. And I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this. I know for me, and I don't know, Elliot, if we want to show a piece of the dance from the shed.
Please.
But yes, so I've been working at the shed this year in residency, and if you can hear me over the music.
No, you can. You're good.
Good. So this is an excerpt that I did. I did an activation around Zora's lost choreographic work, and most of her plays she wrote dance into, but it never was actually realized. And so this was about Gandhi dancers, railroad workers in the South, and the dances and the songs and the rhythms. And so we took one of her field recordings, reorchestrated it into this song, and then created the Gandhi dance from Mules and Men. So like just different ways that I'm finding that I'm able to bring her legacy back. But what I feel very clearly from Zora is don't hide behind my work 100 years ago. Take the inspiration of what was then and translate it into something new now. How would you say it? How would you do it? So I feel that that's my call, and I really respect the legacy and the greatness, kind of the shoulders that I stand on. So this is a little piece. Yeah.
I can say in terms of legacy, I can think of two things really. It's hard for me to say that because I'm just sort of like inside of their world so very often, but two things in particular. With Langston Hughes, one of the things that I've been a part of developing over the last couple of years at Barnard is a series of classes that we call the Harlem semester. So every spring we teach between 5 and 6 classes that interact with Harlem cultural institutions, right? And one of the I think that was really inspired and partly by the I think the poem cycle that a lot of us are familiar with called Harlem, right? Where Hughes talks about what happens to a dream deferred, right? So I feel like that teaching has been really around like what's happening contemporarily, right, in Harlem cultural institutions, right, that we can learn from and be a part of and contribute to, right? I mean, so that part of what's happening at Barnard is not we're like extracting from Harlem, but also being in hopefully a collaborative spirit, right, with Harlem and its institutions. Just a plug for the Studio Museum in Harlem, which is reopening this weekend. It's been closed for 6 years, and it's just like, I cannot wait to get back in there. So that's one thing, right, in the Hurston. I would say in terms of how I think about Hurston's legacy, I mean, that is, again, something that I've been working on, I think in 2 different ways as part of my work at Barnard. I mean, right now we're celebrating Hurston's the centennial of her matriculation and graduation from Barnard. So between 2025 and 2028, we're doing like a kind of 3-year series of projects and programs that are really uplifting not only Hurston's legacy at Barnard, but 100 years of Black students at Barnard, right? So we're really thinking about, Barnard has a long tradition of a lot of Black women writers and Black feminist writers that came in her wake, like Ntozake Shange, Edwidge Danticat. So we're really working with that legacy at Barnard. But the other thing is that I had recently the opportunity to curate an exhibition at the Met called Superfine, which is about Black fashion. And I used Hurston's essay, The Characteristics of Negro Expression, as the organizing principle of that exhibition, right? So I'm always, as an anthropologist, she was thinking about a taxonomy of Black culture, right? So I was really interested in thinking about a taxonomy of Black expressive culture, right? And really wanted to bring that into the exhibition. So I'm always thinking with them, and like you, trying to think about the futurity of their work, right? And what it still makes possible.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will just speak to Monica and say that when I met her, I was able to go to she hosted the first Zora Neale Hurston Summit at Barnard, which was amazing in January, right around Zora's birthday.
Yeah.
And also invited me into your class. I was sitting in on her classes and got to actually lead your last Zora class last semester. So we've been able to collaborate and come together. So it's exciting for us to be here together as well with all of you, and how our worlds and work are aligning.
Yes.
I think your story will end up better than those two.
It better.
Oh my God!
It must.
All right. Thank you very much for tonight. And I know we're running a little bit late, but I want to open up the floor. I mean, if anybody's has any questions please, by all means. What's your name?
Hi, my name's Maura Abraham.
Maura.
My family all belongs. I was born across the street from Columbia at Women's Hospital. Oh. So the whole sense of place and setting, I'm totally there. What I have to bring, when you brought up most important, was what is their legacy? I just saw online on the internet, they were interviewing Cheryl Lee Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
And she said the greatest thing that ever happened to her was receiving, what was that, an Emmy?
Yeah.
All right. And she said, I went to see the Dandyism exhibit and found out that her mother had designed under Kareeb.
Yeah.
And I said, as soon as you said that, I made that connection immediately because I had gone to school with Cheryl Lee.
Oh.
So it just seems to me that that's the most extraordinary thing about being in Westfield is that having been a librarian in the schools, that was, and I had attended a lot of writing workshops in the 90s into the 2000s at Barnard, and they were beginning to promote Zora Neale Hurston and that you're coming. And so it really, so just being here and making that connection is really the legacy, is that we're still talking about it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you
Lovely.
very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi. Monica and Tanya, I had never been to Westfield, and I understand you had the opportunity today to go in their footsteps and go visit their houses. Can you talk about that experience, having like invested so much in their lives, and then for the first time seeing these houses? And just a quick programming note to test everybody: we flipped the addresses tonight, so like just so you know, that's what was going on there before. But anyway, you went to Downer Street where Langston lived, and you went to West Broad where Zora lived. And can you just talk about going there for the first time?
I think for me, actually, being such a Zora head, I was actually most taken by Langston's house, Langston's home, and that we learned that he was living up in the attic. And just to see how small that looked and to read about how kind of pressed he was feeling at that time and to see the space, it really that landed big time. And then Zora's home, I think it's also just fun to hear stories of how people like live there to this day now, and they're very much homes that are still occupied and look the same. So to me, it's just being in Westfield, the houses really do look like how they would have looked when Zora was walking down the street. And so it's really amazing to put ourselves and put myself in their shoes because you can see it. It's so visible.
Yeah, I was really struck by the spaces too. One of the things that I'll recount to my students, I'm teaching a class on Hurston next semester, is that I will talk about, when we're in this moment, right, of them having this conflict, right? When I think of those small spaces that Hughes was in, and then Hurston, the way that biographers describe Hurston's time here is as very frustrating. That she felt very confined, that she was really restless, that this thing with Langston was the only thing that was keeping her going, and that she was just like, it was a little bit a little manic even, right? Seeing the houses where they lived and just thinking about how they must have been walking back and forth, right? And how they must have been all of this activity in both of those attics. I think that's really fascinating to me, right? I always think about the places where, I try to think about the places where writers work, right? And they're so different, right? And they can tell you a little bit about the atmosphere around a piece, right? And so that was really special to get a sense of what the physical location of this really important moment in American literature, right? What if it hadn't happened? That's what I think about all the time. What if they had just written the play and it went to Broadway, right? Or what would have happened if they had been able to continue to collaborate? I don't know. Hurston said that, Hughes was the love of her life, right? And then she lost him.
I have this theory that
I
if
don't know.
the play happened, it would have been okay, but I read something of
it wasn't good. It's not good.
Yeah, it's
it's
the
not
play.
A good play.
If the play is
Not a
the
good
child, then this whole ordeal is the
Yeah.
messy custody battle. But in true Zora style, this is way more dramatic and way more, people are talking about it so much more
than the
than
actual
if they
play.
would have done the play and it kind of flopped on Broadway. Who knows what would have happened to it. But you know what I mean? So I think that's kind of interesting.
I just think not even maybe what they would have written together, but what they would have supported in each other, right? If this had continued.
Yeah.
I think that to me is fascinating, right?
So, anybody else?
I do have a question. So in 1944, in this very space, maybe where you guys are sitting, probably a little bit to the left, Paul Robeson performed to a sellout crowd. And it was a return to Westfield for Paul Robeson because he grew up here, at least between 1907 and 1910. His father started the AME Zion Baptist Church in Westfield. And then they left. I've heard a lot about, like, I've read some things about Langston Hughes and Paul Robeson having a friendly relationship. I've never read anything about Hurston and Robeson being connected in any way. And by the way, maybe that's a why they came to Westfield, that Robeson was such a big figure here. So do you know anything about what their relationship was like, Hurston and Robeson, Langston and Robeson?
I have a speculation.
I do too. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Paul Robeson ended up as a communist, right? Zora Neale Hurston, towards the end of her life, becomes very, very politically conservative, but primarily because she is absolutely a rabid anti-communist.
Yeah.
So I think it was, and it's also after 1930, after Hughes leaves Westfield, right, that he becomes and does a final total breakup with the godmother, that he also becomes communist and then politically radical after that. So I think I don't imagine that Hurston and Robeson had much of a relationship at all.
Hughes' career also did this.
Yeah.
And Zora's, Their Eyes Were Watching God was in 1937, so it went like this kind of, but then it went like, you know what I mean? So I feel like it just went like that, and Robeson and Hughes felt like they were going in the same direction, and Zora was not.
But I do wonder if there was anything, if a Robeson presence, right? We still don't know why Charlotte Osgood Mason chose Westfield. I don't know. We don't know.
She must have known someone here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. This has been great. I love hearing about this. And one of the questions that I have is, in their breakup, do you think that their backgrounds had, I feel you said they were both kind of anthropologists, I believe.
Or anthropologically minded.
Anthropologically minded. But one is from the South, and I think, was she poor too? Or did she come from
No.
Okay.
No.
Was she poor? I think it's like the South. It's like it's different than when you ask that in the North, I feel like. 'Cause there's something about being in the South that it's like, she was black in the South.
Right.
But her family was prominent when she grew up.
But he was the pastor of the church, but they didn't have money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So I was curious because I felt like maybe there was a great deal of curiosity between the two of them when you say that they had a love affair, because they also grew up very differently.
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
And I just wondered what factor you think that might have had in their breakup, and also the fact that Zora felt like she needed to make a living, and he was able to walk away. And I wonder also, were their backgrounds so different that made one more willing to walk away?
That's interesting.
I think it was class and gender.
Yeah.
Right? I really think gender
played a huge role.
Hurston marries 3 times in her life. Those marriages, last for not more than a month, right? It's just like they're like, Hurston is somebody who wants to be independent all of the time, but it's hard to be an independent Black woman artist, right, at this moment in time. So I feel like she had way more to lose. Right, than Hughes did at the time, which is where all of that. By the time she gets to that moment of collaboration with Hughes, she had lived like 7 lifetimes. So much had happened to her in her life. Hughes also had he didn't have a smooth journey,
also was
but it
a
was
mama's
smoother.
boy, and his mom was still could still receive him. Her father, she was estranged by her father, had remarried, and the woman had almost tried to beat her up. They almost got into it. She had to leave. Her mother died. It was just a different situation. Zora didn't have something to fall back to. And
I think that's what
it shows in the way that she died, which was definitely in poverty and obscure. in an unmarked grave. And for those who don't know, it took Alice Walker, reading Zora's work and finding her where she had died in Fort Pierce, Florida, and putting a gravestone there for her in 1975. She died in 1960.
Yeah.
So
it's, I think it's gender and class, right?
I'm just very filled up with this. I love it, as I said to you before. But I have been struck tonight by the context of what was taking place during that 15 to 20 year period, the migration of Blacks from everywhere, the forming of new communities. I mean, even here in Westfield, most of these towns had a small, solid Black community. They were interconnected. There was a country club here that was part of this entire area. It wasn't Scotch Plains, it wasn't Westfield to the Black people who lived here. There was a very thriving community in Plainfield, and they frequented this. Cab Calloway came down here. This was a big deal. So and they had a sort of network, which was very much like the Green Book. Where people in Westfield rented houses or rented rooms. That's why when you said attic, yes, there was no air conditioning in those attics, but it was a room.
I was wondering how hot it was.
It was very hot.
Like,
It was very hot, but you would, because there were no hotels for us.
Exactly.
So the only access, if you wanted to go someplace, would be through a rental of a room. And these people advertised in the papers in New York and Philadelphia, if you wanted to come do this, however you would promote a hotel, the same way they would promote a room. Meals were served, you had access to certain things. So when you say, why Westfield? The same way other people come here, but the conditions were different. They sought out a place that offered them what they needed at the time. But this was a vibrant community in Union County of Blacks. I mean, and from that period of movement and change, communication was new. So all of these things were taking place simultaneously, which had an impact upon their being here and how they lived here when they were here. You have to get the context, I feel, of all of it to appreciate it.
I think the place where we may be able to figure this out, and I was reading actually in this book earlier today, I think it's Charlotte Osgood Mason's papers. Like, I think it's maybe, at some point she decided, right? I mean, she had a diary, right? So I think at one point she decided, and I don't know where those papers are, I'd have to look. She decided to send them here, but she must have written, maybe it was an advertisement that she saw, or, I mean, I'm kind of impressed if she managed to, I know. That's sort of, like, I don't know if I just don't know. But
I like the context that you're
Me too.
speaking of
I love
too,
it
though,
too.
but I love it too because I know at the Zora Summit, someone was speaking who was from Fort Pierce. Or
from Fort Pierce.
Yeah,
her teacher, her former
teacher.
No, former student.
Her former student. When Zora, after all of this, Zora became a middle school teacher in Fort Pierce, Florida, and they didn't even know who she was. She would just be like writing.
She gave them worksheets so
she could go write her own stuff. But what they said that really touched me was like the stories that she died poor and penniless, but she died in community. People would bring her meals. We would bring her biscuits. And I just love that the Green Book we had these spaces because there weren't hotels, that there were these networks. And I think just speaking about Black wealth and Black legacy that's beyond money, that really is about the connections and the community and how we can be in different places and support each other is just, that needs to be spoken of. Because again, when we talk about poverty in terms of money, they weren't impoverished in terms of community and care.
But how Charlotte Osgood Mason figured that out is still unclear. But I'm glad she did. Right? Yeah.
This might sound repetitive, but this is based off of what you were saying with the context. In Scotch Plains, there was the first Black-owned country club, which was called Shady Rest. And they literally, the Black dignitaries,
Maybe that's how she
would
figured it
always
out.
usher themselves over there. And I mean, it's all on their walls, and it's actually, go online, you could find it, you know, and it's very important to know that part of it because a lot of people don't even know that Shady Rest exists. you know, and it's everything in the black, like she was saying, the black communities were all interconnected.
Yeah.
Like they depended on each other.
Yeah. So maybe she knew someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to share. I
Yeah.
believe that she did.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that network, I'm sorry, that network that was established was, you know, that's how communication traveled.
Could have been Elaine Locke.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. Part 2 some other time. Yeah, you know.
Yes, in the back.
Yes, thank you for coming. I was just going to say I was struck by your choreography. When is it opening at the Shed?
Oh, well, so this is the thing about Broadway. This is the secret. I have an appointment. Zora has told me I have 5 years, but most Broadway shows take 7 years from beginning to end. It's a long process. So I'm in year 2. So you do the math. But we will have open different times for community to engage. And if you follow on the Shed's website, or follow the Shed on Instagram or the Zora Project NYC, you'll see when there's things available.
I might have a place for you to do a test run.
All right, let me know.
Oh.
We're sitting in it.
We need
Westfield.
we need many collaborators. Okay,
Yeah.
many.
How great would it be to bring it to Westfield?
Many collaborators. Yes, that's beautiful.
All right, before we wrap up, too, I mean, if Zora was in this audience right now, what do you think her advice would be?
Oh. Watch your back. Just watch your back.
I love that.
Watch your back, get on with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say keep moving. Keep moving, but I love the watch your back. Like keep moving and watch your back.
Mm-hmm. It's like a Sankofa.
Yeah.
It's more Sankofa than it is.
That's right.
You know, be
Yeah.
protected.
Well, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Before we go, I just want to invite Margaret up here.
Hi, thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. That was fantastic. I mean, fabulous. Thank you so much, Garrett, Tanya, Monica.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here. This was really wonderful. So the arts and creativity are so important at every age. Just as it was important to Langston and Zora to collaborate and be creative here in 1930, 95 years later, creativity and collaboration and imagination is so important at every age, from preschool through seniors. It provides, social connection. It builds self-confidence, helps problem-solving skills for little kids. It builds imagination. And that's what we're trying to do here with this new Rialto Center for Creativity. It will have something for everyone. And I just want to ask all of you to please join us. Join us in any way you can, whether it's telling some friends about your time here tonight or about the Rialto dream that we have, telling them about the renderings that you see in the back of the room, joining us in our Rialto Reimagine campaign to raise $9 million. That would be fabulous too. But there's so many things that you can do to join us, spread the word. There have been so many volunteers and people that have helped us get this far, and we need as many as we can to take us to the next level. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks for coming. And, please share a story. Tomorrow's the tickets for the next event. Next Spotlight in December go on sale tomorrow morning. We're going to have the fantastic Lucy Ritter, who's a 25-year-old drumming sensation that went to Westfield High School. And we have a whole slew of amazing local luminaries coming over the next, 6 months. So join us, follow us on Instagram. Post pictures that you took tonight and tag the Rialto so everyone, all your friends know that you were here. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I do one thing? I'm sorry to do this. I'm sorry, before you go. A gentleman just came in whose family has lived in this town for over 300 years. And he is an old friend of mine, and he's 94 years old, and he is the foremost historian in Westfield, certainly of the African American experience, and he's a beautiful man. And I'm sorry he couldn't come early to hear you guys, but this is Mr. Wally Brown, and he's a beautiful person.
Oh boy, this is something. I was saying, Westfield, Westfield, dear old Westfield. Nothing like the town of Westfield. Believe me. I've been around a long time, I guess. I'll be 94 next month. The class of 51, Westfield High School. Played a little bit of football here. My godmother was Mrs. Florence Wallace, the wife of Charles Wallace. He was an inventor. He invented the chlorinator. They call it the Wallace chlorinator. It's in every YMCA in the country. And I said to myself, Westfield is endowed with that person. What a town Westfield is and will always be. And I said to myself, I'm very fortunate to have been here.
Thank you.